You may invest in some of these publicly traded firms we just profiled as part of your investment strategy. Well, how is your 401k doing? It's been some rough sledding for the last few years. For those of you with 401ks, you're about to get your next quarterly statement from your employer or investment advisor, and what you receive is going to look a little different. In short, the Department of Labor has put forth new rules that require greater disclosure from 401k managers and advisors as to their fees. I caught up with Chad Carlson, Vice President and Financial Advisor with Delta Trust Investments, as to what these changes may mean. All right, Chad, so what changes are we going to see on July 1st? What's going to be different for those 401ks?
Well, what we've got rolling out from the Department of Labor starting on July 1st are the new fee disclosure rules. And those come in two forms: one set of fees, or one set of rules for plan sponsors, the second for plan participants. And this really has to do with disclosure. So the responsibility is to service providers to clearly disclose what fees are being charged to the plan sponsors, but also for those service providers to disclose what services that they are providing for those fees.
Give me some examples of what line items will be on those statements.
Well, we're seeing fees and retirement plans come in different formats. Some come directly to the plan sponsor. So costs for record keeping and administration sometimes are paid for by the plan sponsor. Sometimes those fees are included in fund expenses and passed on to the participants in the plans. So the new fee disclosure rules are designed to provide better clarity to both plan sponsors and plan participants, so they'll understand what they're paying and then what they're getting for that. There will also be some better disclosure about the mutual fund expenses, which are the most common type of investments in these 401k plans.
Now, the purpose of this is to provide more information for consumers in the hopes that it's going to make them more informed, kind of give thought to what's best for them. Is this not going to be very confusing for consumers who really just kind of want to see improvement in their investments?
Well, this is much akin to the disclosures that went on the backs of the bags of potato chips a number of years ago. So there were a lot of folks that had the data in front of them, but then didn't understand how to use it and how to make better decisions. So that's a big concern. It's a big concern for me as I work with plan sponsors and work with plan participants day in and day out, that they'll really understand what this additional information means, because just to have the additional information doesn't necessarily mean that participants or plan sponsors are going to be better informed. So there's going to be a significant education component to this entire process, and that's what our regulators need to keep in mind, that's what our plan sponsors need to keep in mind, and our participants as well.
Obviously, you'll be able to comparison shop, but will cheaper necessarily mean better?
No, I read an article just this past week, and I forget the name of the author, but he said, don't miss the forest for the fees. So the cheaper the plan doesn't necessarily mean the better the plan, and plan sponsors don't need to be confused or misguided to think that the least expensive plan is the best option. So it's most important that the fees that they're paying are reasonable and that they understand what services they're getting for the fees. So for instance, if I'm going to be working with a business and there's a fee element to have me involved, so long as I'm bringing value and helping those participants better understand how important it is to save and participate, then that fee could certainly be justified and would certainly be reasonable.
All right, break out this equation for me. Individuals are going to have some responsibilities to kind of guide and guard their 401ks. Employers will too, but what will be employers' responsibilities to their employees in this transition?
Well, the employee or the participant in a retirement plan really has no responsibility, especially in respect to these new fee disclosure rules. All of the responsibilities on the plan sponsor. The plan sponsor is typically the employer in a small business. That's typically the person that's running the business. And it is their responsibility to fully understand what these rules are and how they apply to their plan. There's a saying, a big heart is no substitute for an empty mind. So it is that plan sponsor's responsibility to understand what fees are applicable. And it's our job as consultants and those that are service providers to these types of plans to help our clients understand that. If you're a plan sponsor and you're confused by all of this, you do need to seek help from an independent financial advisor, from a retirement plan consultant, someone that understands this so they can help you understand how to best comply with the rules.
Tell me, do you think that guarding against this confusion is going to be the biggest challenge, or do you think actually making sense of all the detail is going to be the biggest challenge?
That's the question of the day. That's the issue that we're all struggling with. It always comes down to education. It's understanding what all of this stuff, all of these rules mean. And so in, again, the spirit of full disclosure, we're probably going to get a lot of confusion. So from regulatory groups to constituent groups that represent the service providers, they're all trying to get better clarity about what all these rules and changes are going to mean. Obviously, we want participants, the bottom line is we want participants in retirement plans to understand what a value these are. But the big problem is most Americans are still woefully undersaving. So that they have a better understanding of fees or the types of investments they have, that is critically important. But the most important thing is that they understand how important it is that they save, and most aren't saving enough.